MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.
Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Hello, I'm Mike Barry.
And I'm Bob Bluffield.
And together on a Friday morning between 8 and 10 here on Seclo Sounds, we bring you
Pop and Rock Legends.
This is where we take an in-depth look at a pop star and let you know all about them. 8 o'clock through till 10 o'clock on a Friday morning here on Seclo Sounds.
Well, that's different, isn't it, eh? Because normally we start off with that and then we go into the music. But today I thought it was a little bit of a change. We'll just move it around, and that's only the only reason for that is I couldn't find
to sleep.
Yeah, I couldn't find the promo on the screen. So, so that's all my fault. But a very warm welcome to Rock and Pop Legends from me, Mike Barry,
and me, Bob Bluffield. And it's good to be back.
It is good to have you back as well. You know, yeah, we certainly missed you last week. Although I must say I did have a really good, enjoyable show, I thought. thought, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you all to the listeners who actually emailed me in and said, good program this morning.
Was it all Jim Reeves, was it?
No, I didn't have any Jim Reeves at all last week. I might have one this week.
Oh.
We'll just see. But again, another pot puree, because I thought, that I'm getting quite used to this pot puree type thing. I quite like it, actually.
Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, I do.
Because in a way, we get sort of lots and lots of different ones. So rather than just bringing you one artist, which you may or may not like, because to be quite honest with you, I think if you, for instance, we started off this morning with Acapulco, and as you know, I do not like jazz. Although you can't help but liking this one because it is, of course, an actual classic, isn't it?
Traditional jazz, and his name was Bernard Stanley.
Well, that's it.
Acapulco.
Well, I was just going to say, if you don't like jazz, then you're probably going to switch off now because you think, I'm not having 2 hours of jazz. So, listen, don't worry.
You'd never do that, would you?
You haven't got 2 hours of jazz, but
just an hour and a half.
Bernard Stanley Acker, yes.
Yeah, lovely, isn't it?
Hey, he's MBE as well.
I wonder where he got Acker from. Perhaps we'll find out.
He
was born on the 28th of January 1929. It makes him 85 years old. Amazing, isn't it? He's an English clarinetist, of course, and vocalist, billed as Mr. Acapulco on many of his recordings. He's known for his trademark goatee bowler hat, striped waistcoat, and his breathy, vibrato-rich, lower register clarinet style.
Well, there you have it. You want to say how he earned his nickname Acker? Well, it actually comes from the Somerset slang for friend or mate.
Oh.
His parents tried to teach him the piano, but as a boy, he found it restricted his love of outdoor activities, including football. He lost 2 front teeth in a school fight and half a finger in a sledging accident, both of which Bilk had claimed to have affected his eventual clarinet style. On leaving school, he joined the workforce of W.D. and H.O. Wills, the cigarette people in Bristol.
They're not still going, are they?
I don't know. It's I don't know. But he stayed there for 3 years, putting tobacco in the cooling room and then pushing tobacco through a blower. He then undertook his 3 years national service with the Royal Engineers, and he went out to the Suez Canal zone. He learnt the clarinet there after his sapper friend, a chap called John A. Britton, gave him one, and he bought at a bazaar. And
he gave him one?
Yeah, they gave him a clarinet.
Oh, right.
And he bought it at a bazaar, and he got no use for it. So the clarinet had no reed, and Britton fashioned a makeshift reed for the instrument out of some scrap wood. He then borrowed a better instrument from the army, which he kept on demobilisation.
Isn't that interesting? That's interesting, isn't it? On his return home, he joined his uncle's blacksmith business and qualified in the trade. And during the evenings, he played with friends in the Bristol jazz circuit. In 1951, he moved to London to play with Ken Collier's band. But hating London, he returned west and formed his own band in Pensford called the Chew Valley Jazzmen, which was renamed the Bristol Paramount Jazz Band. Yes, I remember them. When they moved to London in 1951. Their agent then got them a 6-month gig in Dusseldorf, Germany, playing a beer bar 7 hours a night, a bit like the Beatles, really, isn't it? Except they were in Hamburg, of course. He played there 7 nights a week, where Bilk and the band developed a distinctive style and appearance, complete with striped waistcoats and bowler hats, even then. On his return, and now based in Plaistow in London, the band played the London jazz club scene. It was from here that Bilk became part of the boom in traditional jazz, coming in trad jazz, of course, that swept the United Kingdom in the late 1950s. In 1960, their single Somerset, a pun on their home county, co-written by Bilk and pianist Dave Collett, reached number 5 in the UK singles charts and began a run of 11 chart hit singles.
He wasn't an international star until an experiment with a string ensemble and a composition of his own as its keynote piece made him one in 1962. Upon the birth of his daughter, excuse me, this is a little ding again. Can you?
I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where it comes from.
Yes, I will have to try.
Perhaps they're dinging us out or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Your time is up,
That's
Mr.
right,
Barry.
yeah. Anyway, upon the birth of his daughter, he composed and dedicated a melody entitled Jenny, which was her name, funny enough. And he was then approached by a British television series for permission to use that melody, but to change the title to Stranger on the Shore, which we just heard, of course. He went on to record it as the title track of a new album in which his signature deep quivering clarinet was backed by the Leon Young String Chorale. The single was not only a big hit in the United Kingdom, where it stayed in the charts for 55 weeks, gaining a second wind after Built was the subject of a TV show, This Is Your Life. But also shot to the top of the American charts at a time when the American pop charts and radio playlists were open to almost anything in just about any style. And as a result, Built was the second British artist to have a single in the number one position of the Billboard Hot 100 single charts. Vera Lynn apparently was the first with Alvida Zane Sweetheart in 1952. Stranger on the Shore sold over 1 million copies and was awarded a gold disc. The album was also highlighted by a striking interpretation of Bunny Berrigan's legendary hit, I Can't Get Started. And at one point, at the height of his career, Bilk's public relations workers were known as the Bilk Marketing Board.
Lovely, isn't it?
Which is a pun and a play on the what was then the Milk Marketing Board. Yeah.
Absolutely timeless record, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Well, in January 1963, the British music magazine New Musical Express reported that the biggest trad jazz event to be staged in Britain had taken place at Ali Pali, Alexandra Palace, just up the road from where I was born, in fact. The event included...
65 years ago.
Yes, now, yeah, don't remind me. The event included George Melly, Diz Disley, Alex Welsh, Chris Barber, Kenny Ball, Ken Collier, Monty Sunshine, Bob Wallace, Bruce Turner, Mick Mulligan and Bilk. Bilk recorded a series of albums in Britain that were also released successfully in the USA on the Atlantic Records subsidiary Atco, including a memorable collaboration together with Danish jazz pianist, composer Bent Fabric. That's a name to conjure up. Bent Fabric. The Alley Cat, they called him.
Yeah.
But his success tapered off when British rock and roll made its big international explosion beginning in 1964, when Bilk shifted direction to the cabaret circuit. He finally had another chart success in 1976 with Aria, which went to number 5 in the UK. In May 1977, Bilk and his Paramount Jazz Band provided the interval act for the Eurovision Song Contest. I bet it was better than the contestants.
Yeah, I bet it was.
His last chart appearance was in 1978 when the TV-promoted album, released on Pi Warwick, Evergreen, reached 17 in a 14-week album chart run. In the early 80s, Bilk and his signature hit were newly familiar, thanks to Stranger on the Shore being used in the soundtrack to Sweet Dreams, the film biography of country music legend Patsy Cline. The tune Aria featured as a central musical motif in the 2012 Polish film Mojrawa. Most of his classic albums with the Paramount Jazz Band have been reissued and are available in the UK based on the Lake Records label.
He's been described as the great master of the clarinet. His clarinet sound and style was at least as singular as had been those of the American jazzmen such as Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw and Russell Procope. And Stranger on the Shore, which he was once quoted as calling my old age pension,
Certainly was that.
well, remains a standard of jazz and popular music alike. It really does, doesn't it? Mm. He continued to tour with the Paramount Jazz Band, as well as performing concerts with his two contemporaries, Chris Barber and Kenny Ball, who of course sadly passed away. Both of them actually who were born in the 1930s. And they went as the three Bs. When they went, I suppose, yeah, Bill,
Barber and Bilk.
Ball.
Sounds like famous solicitors, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
so it's three Bs, yeah. And one of his recordings is with the Chris Barber Band, sharing the clarinet spot with the band's regular reedsman, a chap called John Crocker and Ian Wheeler. He made a CD with another legend of British jazz, Wally Fawkes, for the Lake Records label in 2002. And he's appeared on 3 recent albums by Van Morrison, Down the Road, What's Wrong with This Picture, and Born to Sing, No Plan B.
Mm. Well, Bill was married. He married his childhood sweetheart, Jean, who he met in the same class. The couple had 2 children, one a daughter, Jenny, whom a composition was named after, as we said, which was Stranger on the Shore's original title, of course. And after living near London at Potter's Bar for many years, the couple are now semi-retired in Pensford. In 2000, Bilk was diagnosed with throat cancer. Oh, that's sad. Which was treated through surgery. It was then followed by daily radiotherapy at Bristol Haematology and Oncology Centre. Since then, he has had 8 keyhole operations for bladder cancer and has suffered a mini stroke. Well, there you are.
He's poor old man now.
Yeah.
Poor old Acker, but there you go.
But he's still going on. He's still going
Still
on.
going on, and well, he's a stranger on the shore, isn't he?
But he's a great character as well. I mean, I remember seeing him on things like the Billy Cotton Band Show and stuff like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Wakey, wakey, yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, well, have no more of that.
Just a little bit older than you, but there you go. I do remember that one. It's 15 minutes past 8 o'clock here in Milton Keynes. You're listening to Secular Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes. And we're broadcasting from Pear Tree Bridge, courtesy of Interaction, who are our partners in crime. And if you'd like to know anything about Interaction or what they do, get on the internet and just type in Interaction MK and you'll see. Or if you'd like to know about Secular Sounds, just put that into the internet as well. And we're preaching, of course, to the converted here, but we would like you, the listener, thank you very much for joining us this morning, but to tell all your friends about the programme and about the radio station as well. Because we do have a lot of different types of programmes here on the community radio station in Milton Keynes.
And we're going places.
And we are going places. So if you'd like to join us as well, then all you've got to do, just send us an email, radio@seclosounds, and we'll take it up from there. So a very warm welcome to Lynn this morning.
Yes, hello, Lynn, my darling. How are you? Hope you're well.
I hope she's well. And Lynn, I was up your neck of the woods in the week. I went up and stayed on Great Yarmouth Racecourse for a couple of days.
She's in Lancashire.
I know, but it's not far. It's only down the road.
I suppose it is, yeah.
She's only. I'll tell you what, Great Yarmouth is nearer to where she is, I think.
She's in Sleaford.
Sleaford, yeah. Well, it's nearer to Sleaford than, what do you call it, than we are.
Than you are. Oh, I guess so, yeah.
I think we might be right there. I don't know.
Good morning, Richard, in India. I know you won't be listening live because it's your bedtime, but I know you listen to the repeats of the show. Good morning, Richard.
And Richard,
look forward to seeing you when you come over to the UK.
He's coming over here to the UK as well, is he?
He is indeed, yes.
That's good. And he's going to be staying in Great Yarmouth as well, not far from
No,
us.
he's staying in Scarborough.
Oh, Scarborough.
You keep mixing the two up.
Oh, I don't know what.
You sure you went to Great Yarmouth, not Scarborough, Mike?
I don't know. I'll have to go away and think about that one. Boom. I'll put the piano lid down now. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, the great Russ Conway. He was hounded to death by the taxman, I understand, wasn't he? He had some terrible tax problems, and I think it brought on. I think he had a heart attack, didn't he?
I really don't know, but I'm sure that here on Secular Sounds we will find out.
Yes.
He was actually born Trevor Herbert Stamford in Bristol. He won a scholarship to Bristol Cathedral Choir School and was largely self-taught on piano as he whiled away hours as a youngster during his 3-year term in Boston. I don't know. His father then let him join the Merchant Navy.
I'm surprised they had him.
Yeah, go on then.
Conscripting to the Royal Navy in 1942, he served in the Merchant Navy from Hang on, this doesn't make sense. He was conscripting to the Royal Navy in 42. How can we serve with the Merchant Navy in 42 to 48? Can you answer that? He was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal as signalman in a minesweeping flotilla. Where can that be in a Merchant Navy? But there we are. For distinguished service, he got that for efficiency and zeal. So he must have turned over a new leaf after his term in Borstal. He got this medal for the clearance of mines in the Aegean and operations during the relief of Greece in 1944 to 45. And during his Navy service, he lost the tip of the third finger of his right hand. A bit like Ackerbilk, isn't it?
Isn't it?
While using a bread slicer. He was discharged on health grounds because of a stomach ulcer. Poor old Russ. Conway was talent spotted while playing in a London club and signed to EMI's Columbia label and spent the mid-1950s providing backing for artists on their roster, including Gracie Fields and Joan Regan. He recorded his first solo single, Party Pops, in 1957, which was a medley of standard songs, which included Roll the Carpet Up and The Westminster Waltz, neither of which I know. What was that side saddle you just played?
Yes, it was, yes.
Yeah.
Because between 57 and 63, the 20 UK chart hits, achieving a cumulative total of 83 weeks on the UK singles charts in 1955 alone.
59.
59, sorry. What did I say?
55.
Oh, sorry, 59. And this included two self-penned number one instruments, a side saddle, which we just heard, of course, and roulette, the latter deposing Elvis Presley's A Fool Such As I. And he was a fixture of light entertainment TV shows and radio for many years afterwards, appearing on the London Palladium on a number of occasions and becoming a regular on the Billy Cotton Band show for several seasons. He also made recordings as a vocalist. He was the subject again of This Is Your Life. That's the second one this morning. This Is Your Life.
Eamon Andrews.
Yes, and when he was surprised, of course, by Eamon Andrews during a recording session at the BBC studios at 201 Piccadilly in London.
Yeah, but his career was blighted by ill health, including a nervous breakdown and subsequently a stroke, which prevented him from performing between 1968 and 71. He also at times drank heavily and smoked up to 80 cigarettes a day. Good Lord. He was prescribed antidepressants and had periods of severe self-doubt. But he kept up playing, having been diagnosed with stomach cancer in the late 1980s. In 1990, he founded the Ross Conway Cancer Fund with his friend, writer and broadcaster Richard Hope Hawkins, and they staged charity gala shows in many major theatres that raised thousands of pounds for cancer charities. He appeared as himself in French and Saunders' 1994 Christmas special playing I Like It in their spoof of the piano. Conway, who was never married, died on the 16th of November 2000. Richard Hope Hawkins delivered the main eulogy at Conway's funeral, held at the historic St Mary's Church, Redcliffe, Bristol. Elton John sent a wreath. In 2001, Hope Hawkins devised, staged and directed a tribute to Conway at the Colston Hall, Bristol, with an all-star cast. The £11,000 raised by the event was donated to St Peter's Hospice in Bristol. Another West Country man, a bit like Ackerbilk, really.
Yep.
But doesn't this make you feel old? Because I can see him playing on the BBC in the old black and white days as vividly as we speak.
I'll say no more.
Hi, this is Rhys Manigan, and please join me for Rhys's Friday Night In between 6 and 8 p.m. on Set Close Sounds. I'll be bringing you the best music, movie reviews and topics to start your epic weekend. You can like my Facebook page, Rhys Friday Night In, and you can also follow me on Twitter at @rmanigan. Then join me on Friday nights between 6 and 8 p.m. on Set Close Sounds.
Yes, the 1980s are back.
Hi, I'm Dave and I play the music from the 1980s.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I play the music from the 1990s.
Classic 90s grooves.
So join us each and every Saturday between 10 and midday.
For double decades on Seclo Sounds. Seclo Sounds.
MK Flyers Online, the fast and simple way to find any kind of business or service locally. Find us at mkflyersonline.co.uk or download the MK Flyers mobile app from your app store. MK Flyers Online proudly supports Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Well, continuing with the jazz theme, Mr. Barry.
I know, it's terrible, you know, but when I sort of put this programme together...
You're being converted, I think.
Well, no, but, you know, we mentioned when we did Acapulco at the top of the show, we mentioned that the three Bs...
We did.
You know, he was Chris Barber was one of them. I thought, well, let's see what Chris Barber is as well. Apparently, he's aged 84 at the moment. He was born on 17th of April in 1930. He was born Donald Christopher, brackets Chris, of course, Barber, British jazz musician, known as a band leader and trombonist. As well as scoring a UK Top 20 jazz hit, he helped the careers of many other musicians, notably the blues singer Ottilie Patterson, who was at one time his wife, and vocalist, banjoist Lonnie Donegan, whose appearance with Barber triggered the skiffle craze back in the mid-50s. I remember that.
The old tea-chest string and broom handle.
That's right, yeah.
And a washboard.
Yeah, and he had the first transatlantic hit, Rock Island Line. Well, that was Lonnie Donegan, of course, and that was with while Chris Barber's, or it was with Chris Barber's band, rather, I should say. Is providing an audience for Lonnie Donegan and later Alexis Corner made Barber a significant figure in the British rhythm and blues and the beat boom of the 1960s.
Yeah, well, he was born in Welwyn Garden City, Hertfordshire, the son of a statistician father and headmistress mother. He was educated at Hanley Castle Grammar School, Malvern in Worcestershire, to the age of 15, then St Paul's School in London, and then the Guildhall School of Music. So quite a pedigree in education there.
Indeed.
Barber and Monty Sunshine, probably not his real name, on clarinet formed the band in 1953, calling it Ken Collier's Jazzmen, to capitalise on their trumpeters' recent escapades in New Orleans. The group also included Donegan, Jim Bray on bass, Ron Bowden drums, and Barber on trombone. The band played Dixieland jazz and later ragtime, swing, blues, and R&B. Pat Hallcox took over on trumpet in 1954, when Collier moved on after musical differences, and the band became the Chris Barber Band. In April 1953, the band made its debut in Copenhagen. There, Chris Albertson recorded several sides for the new Danish Storyville label, including some featuring only Sunshine, Donegan and Barber on double bass.
59, the band's version of Sidney Bechet's Petit Fleur, which we've just heard, was a clarinet solo by Monty Sunshine with Barber on string bass. And that spent 24 weeks in the UK singles charts, making it to number 3, and again selling over 1 million copies. And that again was awarded a gold disc. After 1959, he toured the United States quite a few times, where, of course, Petit Fleur charted at number 5. And in the late 50s and the early 60s, Barber was mainly responsible for arranging the first UK tour of blues artists Big Bill Bronzy, Sonny Terry and the Brownie McGee and Muddy Waters. This, with the encouragement of local enthusiasts such as Alexis Corner and John Mayall, sparked young musicians such as Peter Green, Eric Clapton and the Rolling Stones. British rhythm and blues powered the British invasion of the USA charts of the 60s, yet Dixieland itself remained popular. And in 1963, in January, the British music magazine M&E reported the biggest trad jazz event in Britain at Alexandra Palace, and that included George Melly, Diz Disley.
Diz Disley.
Diz Disley, I remember him well, yeah. Acapulco, of course, we mentioned earlier on, Alex Welsh, Kenny Ball, Ken Collier, Sunshine, Bob Wallace, Bruce Turner, Mick Mulligan, and Barber himself.
Well, Barber stunned traditionalists in 1964 by introducing blues guitarist John Slaughter into the lineup, who, apart from a break between April 78 and August 1986, when Roger Hill took over the spot, played in the band until shortly before his death in 2010. Barber next added a second clarinet saxophone, and this lineup continued until 1999. Then Barber added fellow trombonist arranger Bob Hunt and another clarinet and trumpet. The 11-man Big Chris Barber Band offered a broader range of music while reserving a spot in the programme for the traditional 6-man New Orleans lineup. They recorded the Lennon-McCartney composition Catswalk, that can be heard retitled Cat Call, on the songs Lennon and McCartney Gave Away, which was written by Paul McCartney. The song was recorded in late July 1967 and released as a single on the 20th of October of that year.
In 2012, a couple of years ago, the lineup is, and it goes on a very big, long list of people there that he's actually played with. But Chris Barber, let me see, retired after playing his last gig with the Chris Barber Band in July of 2008. Hallcox and Barber were together in the band for 54 years.
Lovely.
That was the longest continuous partnership in the history of jazz, exceeding even that of Duke Ellington and Harry Carney. They did 48 years between 1926 and 74. Tony Carty on reeds also left the band at this time.
Tony Carty?
Yes, he's here on the
Well,
Secular Sounds, isn't he?
Isn't he?
And Vic Pitt on double bass. They retired in January 2007. They dispensed 30 years in the band, so quite a long time with these guys put together. The featured duet with the drummers of the day, Big Noise from Winnetka.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it was not only a feature of the Barber concerts, but also his time with the Kenny Ball Band immediately before. When Amy Roberts joined the band in 2011, she was still a student at Royal Northern College of Music, and thus not always able to be present on several tours. Bert Brandsma on reeds replaced her. Brandsma joined as a permanent member in 2012.
Then at St Luke's, London, on the 9th of June 2007, Barber appeared in the horn section of Nick Lowe's band during a concert. In 2008, Barber, along with Eric Clapton and others, were involved in a new cooperative record company called Blues Legacy. On the 23rd of July of the following year, Barber, Bilk and Ball, another 3 Bs, played a one-off concert at Indigo Tour at the O2 in Greenwich. the concert was presented by the British Music Experience, and then he performed at the Doelen in Rotterdam on the 12th of December 2010. Interestingly, I photographed a wedding many years ago in London, and the bride's father was a former cabbie, black cabbie in London, and he was formerly also a professional jazz musician, and he brought this band together, and I'm sure this character was one of them, that King Collier was, Chris Barber was one of these greats that played. They're all great names, and they're terrific.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You live and learn here, don't you?
You certainly do.
Secular Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes. Broadcasting, of course, from Petrie Bridge, our interaction, our parents, our partners in crime. I'm Mike Barry.
I'm Bob Bluffield.
And together, of course, we bring you 2 hours on a Friday morning of rock and pop legends. And we seem to be now, hopefully, the show is increasing in its popularity. We know from the recording, the figures that we get back from the statistics that more and more people are in fact listening to the programme, and sometimes not always listening to it live, but listening to it afterwards, because don't forget, of course, you can pick it up on Spreaker, and it is repeated here on Secular Sounds.
On Tuesday, I believe, isn't it? 10 till midnight?
Something like that, but, listen to it again here on Secular Sounds, of course, but the easiest way is if you nip up onto Spreaker, Spreaker.com, which is speaker with an R in it, Spreaker, and you can pick it up, you can listen to it any time you like.
Look under the Secular Sounds banner on there now, because we've moved from, it used to be under my name, but they've moved the programmes now to Secular Sounds.
That's okay, that's good, look under that, and there you go, because it's interesting. I bought the pant when I was over in France, Mange too. And hello, Carol and Andy. Hope you're listening in this morning. That'll bring a smile to your face, won't it? And, hope that Judy and Tony are listening as well. If they're not, you want to tell them that they can tune in, and I'll give them a mention in the second hour of the programme. But, it was interesting because I bore them to death, because I would get on my little iPad and then go on to Spreaker and start playing my show again. And people would say, I'm going to listen to that again,
I could get it on my mobile phone as well, but I couldn't get it in Devon for some reason. It came up, but it wouldn't load up for some reason.
Oh, that's a shame. Did you have any Devon cream teas when you were down there?
No, I didn't.
You didn't have a cream tea?
Bad for the diet.
Shame on you. What do you mean dead for the diet?
Bad for the diet.
Good Lord, you waddled in this morning. I'm looking forward to the weigh-in tomorrow morning. Cause,
I'm not.
With all my... no, do you know, but this is what's going to get me, because I did quite a lot of walking in Great Yarmouth, because they said, walk back from the pier to the racecourse, it's only about a mile, well, it's the longest mile I've ever done in my life, but...
it's a mile for horses, probably.
It probably is, actually, yeah, but anyway, we'll probably get on the scales tomorrow, and find that I've put on a couple of pounds and you've probably lost, But,
I don't think so.
Oh, well, we'll see. Anyway, let's get on and press on with the programme, because 23 minutes away from 9 o'clock.
What do you want to make those eyes at me for, if they don't mean what they say? They make me glad, they make me sad, they make me want a lot of things that I never had. You fooling around with me now, where hell you lead me on and then you run away. Well, that's alright, I'll get you alone tonight, and baby you'll find you're messing with dynamite. So what do you wanna make those eyes at me for, if they don't mean what they say? What do you wanna make those eyes at me for, if they don't mean what they say? They make me glad, they make me sad, they make me want a lot of things that I never had. You fooling around with me now, well, hell you lead me on and then you run away. Well, that's alright, I'll get you alone some night, and baby you'll find you're messing with dynamite. So what do you wanna make those eyes at me for, if they don't mean what they say? If they don't mean what they say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that reminds me of two-way family favourites on a Sunday.
Really? What was that?
They used to play that quite a lot.
Did they? Oh, I don't know.
All those there in Germany at BFPO 55 or whatever.
That's where I cut my broadcasting
Did
teeth.
you really? You was BFPO?
No, with BFBS, which was the British Forces Broadcasting Service.
I appeared on their radio station in Hong Kong, whatever the
years ago.
equivalent is called something else over there.
BFBS, yeah.
Probably.
British Forces Broadcasting Service. And that would have been maybe the time when Sarah Kennedy was on it. Was she on it?
I think she might have been.
She was on BFBS out in Hong Kong.
This was in the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Probably a bit later.
No, she'd left there by then.
Well, that was Emil Ford, who was born on the 16th of October 1937 in Castries, St. Lucia, West Indies. His real name is Michael Emil Telford Miller, also known as Emil Sweetnam. He was popular in the UK in the late 1950s and early 1960s as the leader of Emil Ford and the Checkmates, of course, who recorded on the Pie label between 1957 to the late 1960s.
Yes, he was born, as I say, in St. Lucia in the West Indies, the son of a Barbadian politician. But his mother, his father, his mother married again, apparently, after taking the name Sweetman. Some sources erroneously gave Emil Ford's birth name as Sweet Man or Sweet Nan. But he moved to London with his mother and family in the mid-1950s, partially motivated by his desire to explore improved sound reproduction technology. And he was educated at Paddington Technical College in London. It was during that time that he taught himself to play a number of musical instruments, and these included the guitar, piano, violin, bass guitar and the drums. He first entered show business at the age of 20 and made his first public performance at the Buttery in Kensington. Remember the Buttery?
No, but the Athenaeum in Muswell Hill, I was talking to somebody about this the other day because I lived in Muswell Hill and I don't remember it at all. It's now, I believe, a Sainsbury's shop.
Yeah, because that was his first appearance actually with a backing group, and that was at the Athenaeum Ballroom in Muswell Hill. His his television appearances in 1958 included outings on The Music Shop, the Pearl Carr and Teddy Johnson show,
Back.
Oh Boy, and the 6-5 special.
Specials coming down the line. 6-5.
Listen,
Did it take you back, this programme?
Just because you had a birthday last week, and
Oh,
it's 6-5. Yeah, a 6-5 special. That's sort of.
It was indeed.
That's
Yeah.
it all happened. You got your bus pass yet?
I've had it ages, never used it, apart from getting into...
Oh, you should use it.
I use it on things like museums.
No, I used it up in Great Yarmouth several times.
You went on a bus?
Yeah, we did, yes. In fact, we went on the bus from Great Yarmouth to Caister.
Oh, right. Oh, so it was Great Yarmouth, not Scarborough.
Yeah, no. And Caister, I thought was... But Caister's a high street, and that's it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
don't think I've ever been
lifeboat
there.
station there, but...
oh, that's right, yes. Yes, famous lifeboat station,
Yeah,
actually.
because we got on the bus, and the bus then sort of stopped in the middle of this housing estate, and the driver said,
Let's shoot them.
I ain't going anymore. I ain't going any further, mate. Anyway, so...
Back to Emil Ford.
Back to Emil Ford, yeah.
He teamed up in January 1959 with his half-brother, bassist George Sweetnam Ford, who was born 1st of January 1941. He was electric guitarist Ken Street and drummer John Cuffley as Emil Ford and the Checkmates, of course. The band appeared on the TV programme Sunday Serenade, which ran for 6 weeks. They won the Soho Fair Talent Contest in July 1959, but turned down a recording contract with EMI because the company would not allow Ford to produce his own records, and instead he agreed to deal with Pie. Their first self-produced recording, What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For, which he just played, of course, a song originally recorded by Ada Jones and Bill Murray in 1917.
Blimey.
And that went to number 1 in the UK singles charts at the end of 1959 and stayed there for 6 weeks. Ford was the first black British artist to sell 1 million copies of a single.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And in January 1960, Ford signed a 2-year employment management contract with Leslie Grade. He had several more hits with the UK and also scored a number 1 EP in 1960. EP, extended plays. Remember those too?
Yes.
Don't really have those that much now, do they?
Little black ones, but they had 4 tracks on them. didn't
Yeah. The readers of British music magazine NME voted Emil Ford and the Checkmates as the best new act in 1960. Ford's debut album was made up of covers. He made Several albums, his last studio recordings were in 1963. His half-brothers, George and Dave Sweetenham Ford, were later members of a group called the Ferris Wheel. And according to his own site, Emil Ford was responsible for creating a backing track system for stage shows, first used in 1960, which later became known as karaoke. I thought it was a Japanese invention.
Well, it is actually. Well, I thought so, but...
Yeah, in 1960, plus he sold it to him. In 1969, he set up a recording studio in Barbados with the help of his father before moving to Sweden. While there, he further developed a new open-air playback system for stage shows. So he's quite a technician, really, isn't he?
I think it goes back to his, what he went to, in his very early days. That's what he came to England for, really. He was more interested in the sort of technical side of production of music and things like that, which, again, is pretty good, isn't it?
Good for him.
Right, 15 minutes away from 9 o'clock here in Milton Keynes. You're listening to Seklo Sounds, community radio from Milton Keynes, with me, Mike Barry.
And me, Bob Luffield.
And indeed, we'll take a quick commercial break.
Join me, Ryan Elliott, for Teen Matters. The things that make us laugh, make us cry, inspires us and frustrates us. Every Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. on Seklo Sounds. Tell us your stories. Email ryan@seklosounds.org. Then join me, Ryan Elliott, every Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. on Seklo Sounds.
Plain Talking with Mick Bannister, Thursdays at 8 p.m. on Seklo Sounds. Check in for an hour of scintillating chat and music with Mick Bannister and his guests from the world of the film and literature. He'll be talking about their achievements and inspiration and finding out about the books and music that accompany them on their travels around the world. Get to know the person behind the headlines. Catch Plain Talking with Mick Bannister, Thursdays at 8 p.m. here on Seklo Sounds.
Hi, this is Reese Manigan, and please join me for Reese's Friday Night In between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seklo Sounds. I'll be bringing you the best music, movie reviews and topics to start your epic weekend. You can like my Facebook page, Reese Friday Night In, and you can also follow me on Twitter @rmanigan. Then join me on Friday nights between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seklo Sounds.
Together on seklosounds.org.
Your listening station.
I can hear the guitar start to play, and very soon they say I was a fool to turn my love away. And with each glass of wine I feel a glow, and very soon I know I was a fool to let my baby go. So let the heartaches begin. I can't help it, I can't win. I've lost that girl for sure. Tears won't help anymore. Just let the heartaches begin. I can't help it, I can't win. I've lost that girl for sure. Now she's gone, I can't hold back the tears anymore. I see the couples dancing through the night. They hold each other tight as they dance on and on till the morning light. The soft embraces that they seem to share just make me feel aware of the loneliness I find so hard to bear. So let the heartaches begin. I can't help it, I can't win. I've lost that girl for sure, and tears won't help anymore. Yes, let the heartaches begin. I just can't help it. You know that I just can't win. I've lost that girl, sure. And now that she's gone, I can't hold back the tears anymore.
Mr. Long John Baldry.
Great inspiration.
Thank you, Lynn, for that lovely little message just now as well.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, why not?
Shall I read it? Right, it says, Wakey, wakey, morning both. Are you sure you're only 65 this year, Mr. B? That's me, Mr. B, not the other Mr. B. He's older than me,
I know, I wish I was 65.
He's nearly come up to the 7-0. Yeah. I remember my granddad singing Wakey, Wakey with Billy Cotton. Thank you both for the lovely mention. A cuppa will always be here for you if you pass again this way. You're both on top form this morning. Wonderful. I'm just going to lie back and enjoy. Well, that's something, isn't it?
Well done, Lynn.
Have a good day, both. Love, Lynn.
And you.
Thank you, Lynn, and you.
Yeah, have a lovely bank holiday weekend as well.
Of course it is, yeah, of course it is.
Bank holiday weekend, that's right.
The weather's not looking too good, though, is it?
Bit of a long way to come for a cup of tea. We'll have a cup of tea in the studio here in a minute or two.
We'll have one on you, yes.
Yes, that's right. So anyway, Long John Baldry, John William, as he was born, well, that was his name when he was born, 12th of January 1941. He died in July of 2005. He's an English blues singer and a voice actor. He sang with many British musicians, Rod Stewart, Elton John, appearing in bands led by Baldry in the 1960s. He enjoyed top success in the UK, where the one we just heard, Let the Heartaches Begin, reached number 1 in 1967. And in Australia, where his duet with Cathy MacDonald, You've Lost That Loving Feeling, reached number 2 in 1980. Baldry lived in Canada from the late 70s until his death. And there he continued to make records and do voiceover work. And one of his best-known roles in voice acting was as Dr. Robotnik in Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, yeah. Well, Baldry's birth was registered in Brixworth Registration District in the first quarter of 1941. District, getting tongue-tied, includes East Haddon, which is in Northampton, not far from here. So it appears certain that this was his birthplace. His mother's maiden name was Parker. His early life was spent in Edgware, Middlesex, where he attended Camrose Primary School until he was 11, and then went to the Downer Grammar School. Just before his death, he attended the school's 40th anniversary celebration. Baldry grew to 6'7", or for those in metric, 2.01 metres.
Big lad, isn't he?
He was, yeah. I used to see him at the Marquee Club. I never saw him perform, but I saw him. He was in the audience quite regularly.
Yeah. I bet people didn't like it if he was sitting in front of them.
Oh, he's standing. He all stood in there. That was even worse. He normally stood at the back, funnily enough.
Oh, well,
but he was always recognised by people because of his height. He was nicknamed Long John, of course, because of that. He was one of the first British vocalists to sing blues in clubs. He appeared quite regularly in his 60s in the Geyer and Gimble Coffee Lounge around the corner from Charing Cross Railway Station, and at Brownsville R&B Club, Manor House, London. Yeah, I know that. I never went there, but I know it. It used to be a bit of a rough house. Also, Clock's Cleek Railway Hotel, West Hampstead. He sometimes appeared at the Eel Pie Island on Thames at Twickenham, which is where the Rolling Stones made one of their early venues. In the early 60s, he sang with Alexis Corner's Blues Incorporated, with whom he recorded the first British blues album in 1962. He was on R&B from the Marquee, which I've got. At stages, Mick Jagger, Jack Bruce, Charlie Watts were members of his band, and Keith Richards, Brian Jones played with him on stage, or none played on the R&B at the Marquee album. When the Rolling Stones made their debut at the Marquee Club in July 1962, Baldry put together a group to support them. Later, Baldry was the announcer introducing the Stones on the US-only live album got Live If You Want It in 1966. I used to go to the Marquee Club a lot, actually. Saw a lot of great shows there. Great place. Great venue. Yeah. Go on then.
Well, I was going to say, excuse me, he became friendly with Paul McCartney after the show at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, and that was in the early 60s, of course, leading to an invitation to sing on one of the Beatles 1964 TV specials, Around the Beatles. Well, in the special, Baldry performs Got My Mojo Working and a medley of songs with members of the Vernon Girls trio. Remember the Vernon Girls?
Yeah.
In the latter, the Beatles are shown singing along in the audience. 1963, Baldry joined the Cyril Davis R&B All-Stars with Nicky Hopkins playing piano. He took over in 1964 after the death of Cyril Davis, and the group became Long John Baldry and his Hoochie Coochie Men, featuring Rod Stewart on vocals and Jeff Bradford on guitar. It's interesting when you actually, when you're hearing these things, that, the early days for the Stones, of course, and people like Rod Stewart and that sort of thing,
I've got a very interesting book indoors. There's a couple of them out now called Rock Family Trees, and it's superb. It's really well researched and put together, and it's amazing how all these bands and singers interlock, and who played with who in those days.
That's right. I mean, Stewart, for instance, was recruited after Baldry heard him busking a Muddy Waters song at Twickenham Station.
Brilliant.
And that's after Stewart had been to a Baldry gig at the Eel Pie Island, as you mentioned earlier on. Long John Baldry became a regular feature on Sunday nights at Eel Pie Island from then onwards, fronting a series of bands. And in 1965, the Hoochie Coochie Men became Steam Packets with Baldry and Stewart as male vocalists, Judy Driscoll as the female vocalist, and Brian Auger on Hammond organ.
Was there a group called She Trinity, were they not?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, after the Steam Packet broke up in 1966, Baldry formed Bluesology, featuring Reg Dwight.
Yes, and we know who that is, don't we?
We know who that is, don't we? Sir Elton, of course, on keyboards, and Elton Dean, the brother of Soft Machine, as well as Caleb Quay on guitar. Dwight adopted the name Elton John, his first name from Dean and his surname from Baldry.
That's correct,
yes. And again, we just talked about Rod Stewart, and we got this chap, Reg Dwight, it sort of comes along and now becomes Sir.
Well, my dear wife saw him play at, I think, Brunel University as Reg Dwight.
Yeah? Oh, that's interesting.
Before Elton was even thought of.
Yeah.
Well, Baldry was openly gay, and during the early 1960s, at least amongst his friends and industry peers. However, he did not make a formal public acknowledgement, come out, as it were, until the 1970s, possibly because until 1967 in Britain, homosexuality was still a criminal offence that could lead to forced medication and or jail time.
Forced medication.
I like that. Yes. Baldry, I wonder what they did.
We know what they did.
Yeah, Baldry had a brief relationship with lead guitarist of the Kinks, Dave Davies. Ah, yes. And supported Elton John in coming to terms with his own sexuality. In 1978, his then upcoming album, Baldry's Out, announced his formal coming out. And he addressed sexuality problems with a cover of Canadian songwriter Bill Amesbury's A Thrill's a Thrill.
Yes.
Sordid stuff, eh?
We won't mention any more about that one, but
no.
Perhaps not. Anyway. In 1967, he recorded this pop song that we just heard earlier on, Let the Heartaches Begin. Went to number one in Britain, followed in 1968. A top 20 hit titled Mexico, which was then the theme of the UK Olympic team that year. Let the Heartaches Begin made the lower reaches of the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States.
Well, Bluesology broke up in 1968 with Baldry continuing his solo career and Elton John forming a songwriting partnership with Bernie Taupin. In 1969, Elton tried to commit suicide after relationship problems with a woman. Taupin and Baldry found him, and Baldry talked him out of marrying the woman, helping make Elton John comfortable with his sexuality. We're back to this again, aren't we? The song Someone Saved My Life Tonight from Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy was about this experience. I didn't know that. In 1971, John and Stewart each produced one side of It Ain't Easy, which became Baldry's most popular album and made the top 100 in the US album chart. The album featured Don't Try to Lay No Boogie Woogie on the King of Rock and Roll, bit of a mouthful, which became his most successful song in the US. Baldry's first tour of America was at this time, and the band included Mickey Waller, Ian Armitt, Peter Sears and Sammy Mitchell. Stewart and John would again, Elton John as of course, would again cooperate in 1972 album Everything Stops for Tea, which made the lower reaches of the American album charts. The same year, Baldry worked with ex-Procol Harum guitarist Dave Ball. But Baldry had mental health problems and was institutionalised for a brief time in 1975. In 79, Baldry's album Baldry's Out was recorded after his release. He played live at Zolly's nightclub in Oshawa, underneath the Oshawa Shopping Centre, shortly after releasing Baldry's Out. In 1997, in an interview with a German TV programme, Baldry claimed to be the last person to see singer Mark Bolan before Bolan's death on the 16th of September 1977, having conducted an interview with a fellow singer for an American production company. He says just before Bolan drove away and had his accident. His girlfriend was driving, wasn't he, in a Mini.
This is terrible,
hit a tree down Barnes Common, as I remember.
That's right. And after time in New York City and Los Angeles in 78, Baldry settled in Vancouver in British Columbia, where he became a Canadian citizen. He toured the West Coast as well as the US, North and Northwest as well. Baldry also toured the Canadian East, including one 1985 show in Kingston, Ontario, where audience members repeatedly called for the title track from his 1979 album Baldry's Out, to which he replied, "I'll say he is." In 1979, he teamed with Seattle singer Kathy McDonald to record a version of the Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Loving Feeling, following which McDonald became part of his touring group for 2 decades. The song made the lower reaches of the US Billboard charts, but was a top 5 hit in Australia in 1980. He last recorded with the Stony Plain label. His 1997 album, Right to Sing the Blues, won a Juno Award in the Blues Album of the Year category in the Juno Awards in 1997.
He played his last live show in Columbia, Ohio on the 19th of July 2004 at Barristers Hall with guitarist Bobby Cameron. The show was produced by Andrew Myers. They played it to a small group, some came from Texas, and 2 years previously the two had a 10-venue sellout tour of Canada. Baldry's final UK tour as the Long John Baldry Trio concluded with a performance on Saturday the 13th of November 2004 at the Kings Lynn Arts Centre. In Norfolk, the trio consisted of LJB, that's Long John Baldry of course, Butch Coulter on harmonica and Dave Kelly on slide guitar. He died on the 21st of July 2005 in Vancouver General Hospital of what it says here is a chest infection, but he was survived by his partner Felix Oz Rexach, a brother Roger and a sister called Margaret.
Hello, I'm Mike Barry.
And I'm Bob Bluffield.
And together with Alan Mullion, we bring you The Grumpy Old Men on Saturday morning between 8 and 10. We take a look back at what's been happening during the week and
let's just say discuss it. Oh yes, we do play some good music as well. That's all here every Saturday morning between 8 and 10 on Seclo Sounds.
Culture Catalyst is the alternative playlist to your Saturday night here on Seclo Sounds.
Bringing an eclectic mix of new sounds and emerging artists.
It's a playlist you won't get bored of.
So join me, Nish,
and me, C,
on the first Saturday of every month from 10 till midnight for all the latest in new music from across all genres.
It's going to be real big.
Massive, mate.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sounds. MK Pulse is Milton Keynes' local magazine, bringing helpful information on food, health, fashion, money, travel, culture, and much more to 66,000 readers every month. Plus news, views, and what's on from around the city. If it's happening in Milton Keynes, it's in MK Pulse, and it's available online at www.mkpulse.co.uk. MK Pulse and Seclo Sounds, the heart and soul of the city.
Hi, this is Reese Manigan, and please join me for Reese's Friday Night In between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds. I'll be bringing you the best music, movie reviews and topics to start your epic weekend. You can like my Facebook page, Reese Friday Night In, and you can also follow me on Twitter at @rmanigan. Then join me on Friday nights between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Ciudad del mar, nunca más te podré olvidar. Y en tu playa yo fui feliz, y en recuerdo te canto a ti.
Wow, we certainly bring you something different on this show, don't we?
Blimey, all right.
Caterina Valenti, what a lovely name. Born 14th of January 1931 in Paris. Mange tout. She's an Italian singer, in fact, a guitarist, dancer and actress. She was born into an Italian artist family. Her father, Giuseppe, was a well-known accordion player, as they are. Her mother, Maria, a musical clown. She had 3 siblings, one of whom, Silvio, was also active in show business. In 1952, she married the juggler Eric Van Aro. Gerd Eric Horst Schultz was his real name. He recognised her talent and accompanied her in her initial years of worldwide success, although they later divorced. Their son is the singer Eric Van Aro. In 1953, she made her first recordings with Kurt Eldilhagen. God, we got some names this morning.
I'm glad you got them.
Yeah, soon after, she achieved success with songs such as Malaguena, The Breeze and I, and Drek Dik Nik a German name.
Which we just heard, of course.
Is that that? Is it?
Oh, no, The Breeze and I.
Oh, The Breeze and I.
Yeah.
With the Werner Müller Orchestra. In 1955, she was featured on the Colgate Comedy Hour with Gordon McRae. And in the mid-1960s, Valenti worked with Klaus Ogerman and recorded material in both Italian and English that he arranged, conducted and or composed on the Decca label, and the London label as well. Between 1966 and 1972, she was a frequent guest on the Dean Martin show. She's very international, isn't she?
She really was, actually. And in 1972, she married the British pianist Roy Budd, and they had a son, Alexander. But they divorced 7 years later in 1979. In Germany, she was a major performer of Schlager music, where she recorded Cole Porter's I Love Paris under the German title Ganz Paris Traumont von der Liebe.
Yeah, well,
something like that.
We've got to be a bit linguistic on here now.
I didn't do German at school.
No.
I didn't do French, but there we go. And that included Louis Armstrong, of course, Chet Baker, Perry Como, Ella Fitzgerald, Benny Goodman, just to mention a few.
Yeah, there's some names there.
In 1959, she was nominated for a Grammy Award, and Valenti was a principal, along with Carol Burnett and Bob Newhart, on the short-lived CBS variety series The Entertainers. That was on just for a year, 64 to 65. The Italian jazz CD recorded in 1989 and re-released in later years under the titles Fantastica and Platinum Deluxe was her best-selling CD worldwide. In 2001, she released a new album, Girl Talk, rather. I'm trying to make foreign names now. Girl Talk, and that was with harpist Catherine Michel. In 1958, she filmed the musical comedy Hier bin ich, Hier bild ich,
whatever.
Yeah, and translated very quickly, Here I Am, Here I Stay, and that featured a guest appearance by Bill Haley and his Comets. And during Haley's segment, Valenti sings a duet with Haley on a newly recorded version of his song Viva la Rock and Roll.
She got a whole host of awards in different countries. A lot of awards given to her in Germany, where she did all these funny sounding songs. And also she made quite a number of records in America. And Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Colombia, as well as UK.
And Japan?
Yeah, everywhere.
She's sort of clocked around a little bit.
She has a bit. Is she still alive? I think she is. It must be.
Yes, she must be.
No reports of her demise, as they would say.
No. So, Katrina
Valenti.
Yeah. Right, okay, well, we put this programme together. We started off at the top of the programme with a little bit of jazz. Let's see what's going to happen now. boom.
Great stuff. Midnight in Moscow, wasn't it?
Yes, it was indeed.
Kenneth
Well done.
Daniel Ball, 27th of May 1930, died 7th of March last year. I didn't know he was dead. Remember it now, yeah, I suppose. English jazz musician, best known as the band lead and lead trumpet player and vocalist in Kenny Ball and his Jazzmen. He was born, in fact, in Ilford, Essex, and he died nearby in Basildon, Essex. Great musician, actually, great musician.
Essex boy, yeah.
Yeah, trad style, wasn't he? He was born, as I say, in Ilford. At the age of 14, he left school to work as a clerk in advertising agency, as indeed I did. Also started taking trumpet lessons. He began his career as a semi-professional sideman in bands, whilst also working as a salesman and for the ad agency. He turned professional in 1953 and played the trumpet in bands led by Sid Phillips, Charlie Galbraith, Eric Delaney and Terry Lightfoot before forming his own trad jazz band, Kenny Ball and his Jazzmen, in 1958. His Dixieland band was at the forefront of the early 1960s UK jazz revival. In 1961, the recording of Cole Porter's Samantha was released and became a hit. And at the end of 1961, they reached number 2 on both the US Billboard Hot 100 and UK singles charts with Midnight in Moscow. I actually thought they got to number 1, but there we are. The record sold over 1 million copies, earning gold disc status. Their next single, March of the Siamese Children, I remember that.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, and from The King and I, topped the pop music magazine NME chart in March 1962. Further hits followed, and such was their popularity in the UK that the Ball was featured alongside Cliff Richard, Brenda Lee, Joe Brown, Craig Douglas and Frank Ifield on the cover of the NME in July 1962, although in the US they remained a one-hit wonder. He also appeared in the NME, this big trad event in Alexandra Palace, which we mentioned earlier, with various people, including George Melly, Bilk, etc. The same year, Ball became the first British jazzman to become an honorary citizen of New Orleans and appeared in the 1963 film Live It Up, featuring Gene Vincent. Yeah, there you go. What more do you want?
Well, it's interesting. Excuse me, we've done the 3 Bs now, haven't we, really,
Yeah.
It's down on the programme. 2001, if we go back a little bit, Ball and this band enjoyed one of the longest unbroken spells of success for trad bands, and his status rivals contemporaries Bilk and Chris Barber, which we mentioned we featured on the show, haven't we? Their joint album, The Best of Ball, Barber and Bilk, that one reached number 1 in the UK album charts, and he's charted 14 top 50 singles in the UK alone. All such releases were issued on the Pi record label. In 2001, he was part of the recording of an album on the Decca label, and it featured Don Lusher, Bilk, John Chilton, and the Feet Warmers, John Dankworth, local of course, Humphrey Littleton, and George Melly, and was entitled British Jazz Legends Together. He continued to tour until shortly before his death. His last scheduled concerts being aptly with Bilk and Chris Barber at Manchester's Bridgewater Hall, and that was on the 21st of February 2013, last year. He died at Basildon Hospital, as we mentioned earlier, where he was being treated for pneumonia. Today, the band continue with Kenny's son at the helm and under the guise of Kenny Ball Jr. and his Jazzmen. Excuse me, the band is managed by Steve Hughes Management, and that's Kenny Ball and his Jazzmen. Here on the Seclo Sounds Community Radio from Milton Keynes, broadcasting, of course, from our studios at Peartree Bridge, courtesy of Interaction. If you'd like to get involved with Community Radio Station, we would always welcome you on board. So just send us an email to radio@Seclo Sounds. Preaching, of course, to the converted at the moment, because thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to the programme, which we hope you've enjoyed it. But don't forget, as we always say, we need to expand a little bit. So tell your friends to listen in and see what you can get. And, you might have a friend, a husband, a wife, a daughter, a son, who would like to get involved with community radio. So just send us an email to radio@Seclo Sounds, and we will do the rest.
Yeah, don't
D. Irwin.
Go on, are you going to pronounce his name or do you want me to?
No, I'll let you do it, because I'll just say Costco's, you know. But
Costco's, yeah. DeFosco D.T. Irvin Jr. And he was born in Harlem, New York City on the 6th of July 1932. Left us in August on the 27th, 1995, at the age of 63. For obvious reasons, he was better known as Big D. Irwin.
I wonder why. Perhaps we'll get to that in a
may
little
do,
while.
yeah.
Go on then.
He was an American singer and songwriter. I thought he was an actor as well, but maybe not. Whose biggest hit was a version of Swinging on the Star, that one we just played. It was recorded as a duet with Little Eva. Well, D. Irwin, as we said, was born in Harlem. Some sources give his first name as DeFosca and his family name as Irwin. He joined the US Air Force and in 1954 was based at, here we go again, Narsarasuk Air Base in Greenland. That's an Eskimo name. Yeah. While there, he formed a singing group called the Pastels, which, with himself as lead singer, Richard Travis, first tenor, Tony Thomas, second tenor, and Jimmy Wellingham, baritone, but easier names to pronounce. They performed in the Air Force talent shows, and after being transferred to Washington, D.C., took part in a national show called Tops in Blues in 1957. They then auditioned and won a contract with Hole Records in New York and recorded a song written by Irwin called Been So Long. The record was released locally on the subsidiary Mascot label before being released by Chess Records, which of course is a great bluesy sort of label, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Who issued it on their Argo label. At the same time, the members of the Pastels were leaving the Air Force, Irwin being discharged in February '58. Been So Long reached number 4 on the Billboard R&B chart and 24 on the pop chart, and the Pastels toured widely and appeared on concert bills. And then in March 1958, they featured as part of Alan Freed's touring Big Beat show, which was very popular at the time, which also included Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Frankie Lyman, Larry Williams, and Screaming Jay Hawkins, all great names to reckon with. The group's second record, You Don't Love Me Anymore, was released in April 1958, but wasn't a hit, and they performed at the Apollo Theatre later in 1958, but split up the following year.
Irwin then started a solo career on Hole Records as D. Irwin, and also recorded on the Bliss label before signing for Dimension labels as Big D. Irwin, and releasing a version of the 1944 Bing Crosby song Swinging on a Star, which also featured Little Eva, uncredited apparently on the UK issue. In 1963, the song reached number 38 on the US pop chart, and it became a bigger hit in the UK, where it rose to number 7, and Irwin took part in a 9-month tour of Britain. Neither Irwin's follow-ups, Happy Being Fat, again with Little Eva,
because that's why it was called Big D,
nor releases on Dimension were successful. However, Irwin continued to release singles for a variety of labels throughout the 60s and also worked as a songwriter for Ray Charles, Bobby Womack and others. The Hollies included his What Kind of Boy on their 1964 album In the Hollies Style, and in 1966, initially under the name DeFosco, he released the disco single Face to Face. His last record release was in 1978. He died of heart failure in 1995, and his son, David Irwin, also played piano professionally as a studio musician. Big D. Irwin and Little Eva, eh?
Yeah, names to remember, aren't they?
Of course, we heard a lot there about Big D. Irwin, but nothing about Little Eva. But maybe we will find something else about her a little later
Not
on.
Locomotion.
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what is coming. Well, I do know what's coming up because I produced the show. But
I don't.
You don't. But never mind. You will remember this young lady because she's. I think she's absolutely gorgeous.
When shadows of evening gently fall, the memory of you I soon recall. We walked in the rain, you kissed me, whispered my name. Where are you now, my love? Where are you now, empty arms will tell you you belong to me. You come to me and see how I've been waiting every day, just hoping that you'll come back to stay. I don't know when I'll ever see you again. Where are you now, my love? Where are you now, my love? La, la,
Oh boy, I'm in raptures over that. I used to love that song. And
She's
that
gorgeous.
Lovely,
Gorgeous, isn't
well, she
she?
was.
Yeah, well.
Lovely voice of Jackie Trent.
She's just aged a little bit, that's all.
Just
I mean,
a bit like us. She's a bit older than you, actually, Mike. She's 73.
It's a bit older than me, you know.
Well, I remember her when she was about 19, I think.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? You know, probably when you were that sort of age, you know, people went, "Wow, you know, what a bloke," you know. But
yeah.
No, you know.
Well, I don't know about that.
Born Yvonne Burgess on the 6th of September, as we say, in 1940. English singer, songwriter, and actress. Born in Newcastle upon Lyme.
Under Lyme?
Yes, let's get it right. It's a different one, isn't it? Yeah. And her first stage appearance was as a 10-year-old in the pantomime Babes in the Wood. But her primary interest was a career in pop music. Her first single, Pick Up the Pieces, was released in 1962. But it wasn't until Pye Records record labels, and 3 years later she recorded her first hit, that one we just heard, Where Are You Now?, which was featured on the popular TV series It's Dark Outside, and was written by Tony Hatch and Trent, who at that time were involved in a successful professional collaboration with Pet Clark. Where Are You Now reached number 1 in the UK single charts in May of 1965, topping the charts for just 1 week. The song was written and recorded in just 4 days after Tony Hatch was asked by Granada TV to produce a song for the female lead in the programme to be seen on a screen playing to herself. Well, the lyrics were written by Jackie Trent in Christmas of 1964, just before she headed off to South Africa on a 3-month tour. When the song first hit the screen, people contacted TV Times to ask where they could get it, and the rush was on to get it into the shops. The song went to number 1 in May of 1965, knocking the Beatles' Ticket to Ride off the number 1 spot.
You could say the song was hatched.
Well, you could say, couldn't you?
Yeah, in 1966, I Couldn't Live Without Your Love was inspired by the ongoing affair between Trent and Hatch, and they subsequently went public with their relationship. A year later, they were married in Kensington in London. Although she recorded several singles and albums, both as a solo artist and in tandem with her husband, Trent was more successful as a songwriter rather than a singer. Well, she'd have a silky voice, didn't she? In addition to their compositions for Clark, over the years, she and Hatch wrote a wealth of material for other artists, including Frank Sinatra, Jack Jones, Nancy Wilson, Des O'Connor, Val Dennison, Shirley Bassey, Vicky Carr and Dean Martin. And in the late 60s, Trent returned to the stage with a UK tour of the musical Nell with Hermione Baddeley. In 1970, Trent recorded the Les Van Dyke composed I'll Be Near You, and in March that year she appeared on the cover of NME. In the 1970s saw Hatch and Trent diversify into the world of musical theatre. The first of their projects was called The Card and was based on Arnold Bennett's novel, with a book by Keith Waterhouse and Willis Hall, running London's West End with Jim Dell and Melissa Martin in the starring roles. Melissa Martin was a neighbour of mine when I was a child, a friend of my sister's.
Good Lord.
She comes from Wood Green. Coincidentally, Clark had starred in the 1952 film version with Alec Guinness. The original cast album was released in 1975. A rewritten version of the show starring Peter Duncan and Hayley Mills played at the Regent's Park Open Theatre in the 1990s and spawned a new cast album. The second Hatch Trent musical was Rocky Nativity, with book and lyrics by David Wood. Initiated and produced by Cameron McIntosh, it first played in Newcastle upon Tyne at this time, not under Lyme. An update version of the show toured nationally in 1976 and was broadcast by Scottish TV. A full-length concert version was also recorded at the Cork Opera House for transmission on RTE.
Which is, of course, the Irish television.
It is, yeah.
In 1972, the couple wrote the song Will Well Be With You, a celebration of Trent's hometown football club, Stoke City, reaching the final of the Football League Cup. It was released under the name of the Potters, the club's nickname, of course, and the song was recorded using Pi Record label's outside broadcast unit and featured the team and supporters. So 40 years on, it's still played at all Stoke City home games and reached number 34 on the UK chart. Stoke actually beat Chelsea FC 2-1 in the final. And the track is still played at Stoke's home games, as mentioned, to this very day.
It was about the only thing they ever won, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. In 1978, in August, Trent appeared on the BBC TV programme Seaside Special. Later the same year, the couple left the UK for a 4-year residency in Dublin, where they hosted their own TV series, Words and Music and It's a Musical World, before they moved to Australia in 1982. It was while down under that the couple wrote what might be their most famous composition, the theme tune for the TV soap Neighbours.
I didn't realise I knew Hatch wrote that. I didn't know she sang in it.
I don't know.
Or did she? But she didn't.
I don't know.
But she just wrote it.
Well, they separated in 1995 and divorced in 2002. And following the couple's initial celebration, Trent made a successful return to the British stage, touring the country in the musical high society. After spending several years in semi-retirement, she toured Australia with a series of concerts in April and May of 2004. 2005, in November 24th, she married a chap called Colin Gregory. And in 2008, Trent collaborated with the record producer Ted Carfrae on her latest album entitled Tranquility. Well, that's quite a clever way around it, isn't it? And she's also appeared as a guest on BBC Radio 4's The Reunion in August of 2012.
So how many people out there remember Jackie Trent?
Well, I don't know. She's a pretty nice lady, really.
I think so. I think she was good, yeah.
Yep. Right, time for a little break.
MK Flyers Online, the fast and simple way to find any kind of business or service locally. Find us at mkflyersonline.co.uk or download the MK Flyers mobile app from your app store. MK Flyers Online proudly supports Seclo Sounds, community radio for Milton Keynes.
This is Seclo Sounds. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. for 1 hour in the company of Harry and Edna on the Wireless, exploring all aspects of the vintage scene and playing tip-top gramophone tunes. Harry and Edna on the Wireless, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on seclosounds.org. Jolly good.
Hi, this is Reese Manigan, and please join me for Reese's Friday Night In between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds. I'll be bringing you the best music, movie reviews and topics to start your epic weekend. You can like my Facebook page, Reese Friday Night In, and you can also follow me on Twitter at @rmanigan. Then join me on Friday nights between 6 and 8 p.m. on Seclo Sounds.
Together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Wishing and hoping and thinking and praying, planning and dreaming each night of a charms that won't get you into her arms. So if you're looking to find love, you can share. All you've got to do is hold her and kiss her and love her and show her that you care. Show her that you care just for her. Do the things she likes to do. Wear your hair just for her. Thinking and a praying, wishing and a hoping. wishing and hoping and thinking and praying, planning and dreaming. Her kisses will start that won't get you into her heart. So if you're thinking how great true love is, all you've gotta do is hold her and kiss her and love her and show her that you care. You gotta show her that you care just for her. Do the things she likes to do. Wear your hair just for her. 'Cause you won't get her thinking and praying, wishing and hoping. 'Cause wishing and hoping and thinking and praying, planning and dreaming. Her kisses will start that won't get you into her heart. So if you're thinking how great true love is, all you've gotta do is hold her and kiss her and squeeze her and love her. Yeah, just do it. And after you do, you will be hers. You will be hers. You will be
The Mersey Beats.
Also known as the Mavericks from 61 to 62, and the Merseys from 66 to 69. Liverpool-based band, of course. Played on the Fontana label, and they were around in the sort of Beatles days. They performed at the Cavern Club along with the Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers, and other similar artists. The current lineup is Tony Crane, founding member, so they're still real.
Yeah.
Lead vocals and lead guitar, Billy Kinsley, founding member. Lead vocals and rhythm guitar, Bob Packham, who joined in 1974, always a newcomer. Backing vocals and bass guitarist, born Robert Packham in 1944 in Anfield, Liverpool. And there's also Dave Goldberg on keyboards and lead guitar, and Lou Rosenthal, who joined in 2000 as a new boy, on drums.
It's funny, excuse me, no, it's not funny at all, it's just fact. They were renamed the Mersey Beats in February of 1962 by Bob Wooler, who was the MC at the Cavern Club. Later in April 1962, they became, of course, the Mersey Beats, all as one word. By now, Crane and Kinsley had joined up with guitarist Aaron Williams and drummer John Banks. They signed a recording label, a contract rather, with Fontana, and had their first hit single in 1963 with It's Love That Really Counts, followed a year later in 1964 by their million-selling recording I Think of You, which gained...
Oh, that was quite nice, yeah.
I did like that one, actually, yeah. That gained them their first gold disc. They suffered a setback in February 1964. Billy Kingsley left to form his own band called the Kingsleys, and he was temporarily replaced by Bob Garner, later of the Creation, and permanently by John Gustafsson, formerly of the Big Three. With Gustafsson, they had two more major hits, Don't Turn Around and Wishing and Hoping, which we just heard, and other successful recordings included Last Night, Don't Let It Happen to Us, I Love You, Yes I Do, I Stand Accused, Mr. Moonlight, Really Mystified, and The Fortune Teller. The Mersey Beats appeared regularly at Liverpool's Cavern Club, and they claimed to have appeared there with the Beatles on more occasions than any other band from that era. They were also successful abroad, touring in Germany and the United States in 1964, and having their own Mersey Beats show on Italian television.
It seems like these bands had to go to Germany to sort of make a name for themselves, because they couldn't get anywhere in this country at that time.
No, that's right. And it was because Germany was the place for it, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the Reeperbahn, was it? Yeah.
Reeperbahn.
Well, the Merseys, after their initial success had waned, the band folded, and in 1966, Crane and Kinsley formed a vocal duo called the Merseys. That they had a major hit with their first single called Sorrow, you might remember, which reached number 4 in the UK, later being covered by many other artists, although it was itself a cover, having previously been a B-side by the McCoys, who did, of course, Hang On Sloopy, didn't they? The introduction of the record featured a bowed bass played by Jack Bruce, who was with Cream. Line-up from this song with Your Long Blonde Hair and Eyes of Blue is including the Beatles' It's All Too Much, which was released in 1969 as part of the Yellow Submarine soundtrack album. David Bowie recorded a single version in 1973, which reached number 3 in the UK singles chart. The duo split in 68, and Crane and Kingsley both going on to front a number of other bands. Crane continued to tour and perform live as Tony Crane and the Mersey Beats during the 1970s. And they reformed, as you said, in 1968. Founding member and drummer John Banks died in April of that year. 1998. Did I say 68? 1988. He died at the age of 44. However, Kingsley and Crane reformed the Mersey Beats in 1993, and after celebrating 45 years in the music industry in 2006, they continue to tour and perform on the 60s circuit and at venues in the UK and across Europe. Yeah.
Thank you for your company this morning as well. I must say that it's very pleasing to know that you're all with us here on Seclo Sounds Community Radio for Milton Keynes. Oh, go on, that's a wonderful one, isn't it?
Equals. North London band, like my old hunting ground.
Yeah.
They were a British pop, R&B and rock group that formed in North London in 1965. Mainly remembered for the million-seller chart topper Baby Come Back, which featured, of course, Eddie Grant then sporting dyed blonde
The Foundations,
hair.
that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
Foundations, yeah.
Yes, because that was the Foundations, Baby Now That I Found You.
Oh, beg your pardon, I'm
Yes.
thinking, I'm talking about Equals, Foundations.
I know,
right.
yes. They were a British soul band, actually.
Yes.
They were active from...
They're not from North London.
No. They were active from 67 to 70. And the group made up of West Indians, a white British and a Sri Lankan. And are best known for their two biggest hits, Baby Now I Found You, which was a #1 hit in the UK singles charts in Canada, and subsequently top 10 in the United States, written by Tony Macaulay and John McLeod, and Build Me Up Buttercup, which was a #3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and #1 in Canada. That was co-written by Macaulay and Mike Darbo.
Manfred Mann.
Yeah, that's right. And at the time, the lead vocalist was with Manfred Mann. The group was the first multiracial group to have a #1 hit in the UK in the 60s. They're noticeable, the Foundations, that's of course the group, are notable for being one of the few label acts to successfully imitate what became known as the Motown sound. In terms of lineup and musical style, they anticipated the sound of the more successful Hot Chocolate, and they were in a similar musical vein as Love Affair, who also topped the UK charts in 1968 with their version of Robert Knight's Everlasting Love. The Foundation signed to Pi, at the time one of the only big four UK record companies. The others, of course, being EMI with HMV, Columbia Records, and Parlophone. Decca and Phillips, of course, were also owned by Fontana.
Now, why do I think they were the equals? I should know that because our local friend Clem Curtis was the lead singer, wasn't he, at one time?
He was indeed, yes.
Yeah, Foundations drew much interest and intrigue due to the size and structure of the group. Not only was there a diverse ethnic mix in the group, but there was also diversity in ages and musical backgrounds. The oldest member of the group was Mike Elliott, who was 38 years. God, ancient. The youngest was Tim Harris, who at 18 was barely out of school. The West Indian horn section, which consists of Jamaican-born Mike Elliott and Pat Burke, both saxophonists, and Dominican-born Erica Landau on trombone. They were all highly experienced musicians who came from professional jazz and rock and roll backgrounds. Mike Elliott had played in various jazz and rock and roll bands, including Tubby Hayes and Ronnie Scott. The Cabin Boys, led by Tommy Steele's brother Colin Hicks, and others. Pat Burke, a professional musician, was from the London Music Conservatorium. Eric Allendale had led his own band on one stage, as well as having played with Edmundo Ross and being a former member of Terry Lightfoot's band, and as well as Alex Walsh. Alan Warner, the guitarist, was also an experienced musician for his age, having played with numerous semi-pro groups from the age of 16. Bassist Peter Macbeth was a former teacher. Tony Gomez, a keyboard player, was a former clerk. While Clem Curtis, I didn't know you'd been an interior decorator. We must talk to him about that sometime. See if he'd come around and do a bit of painting. And he was also a professional boxer.
Yeah, we've got to be careful then how we talk to him.
Yeah, we've got to be kind to him.
Yeah, Clem actually lives not very far from here in Olney. And,
he does.
Yeah, I met him 2 or 3 years ago, actually, and told him about the radio show, and he said, well, I'm coming on it, man.
Well, I did speak to him about this earlier in the year, didn't I? My fault, actually. Sorry, Clem, we let it slip a bit. You are due to come on the programme at some time.
I think what we'll do, actually, is we'll go over there with our little recording thing, and we'll record a show with him. On site, because to get him out of bed for 8 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning,
he said to me, phone me in the afternoon. Well, after 2.
That's it,
He still performs quite a lot.
Yeah, the story of the origins of the Foundations can be somewhat surprising and a bit confusing as to who was responsible for choosing the band's name, and various sources give slightly different accounts of their beginnings. One version is that they were originally called the Ramon Sound, or the Ramones, and they were 2 lead singers, Clem Curtis and Raymond Morrison. When Raymond was in prison for 6 months, a friend of the band suggested psychedelic shock rocker Arthur Brown. Other variations on this are that after they dropped the Ramon from their name, they were then called the Foundation Squad, or the Foundation Sound. Well, apparently Arthur Brown was only a temporary member for about a month, and by the time the Foundations had signed to Pi, he'd left the group. The Foundations actually did come together in Bayswater, London in 1967. They practiced and played in a basement club called the Butterfly Club, which they ran. While managing the club themselves, they played music nightly and handled the cooking and cleaning. They'd get to bed around about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, and they'd sleep until about 4, get up and begin again to get ready to open at 8 o'clock. Sometimes they barely made enough money to pay the rent, let alone feed themselves. At times they lived off the leftovers and a couple of pounds of rice. They stayed there until they were eventually forced out by a protection racket gang, and then had to move next door to a dingy, unused mini-cab office. Hey, when we get to talk to Clem, blimey, well...
Sounds interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll have some stuff to talk about them, won't we?
Yeah. Well, while the biography of On All Music states that Barry Clark was the first to discover them, Alan Warner, the original founding member and lead guitarist of the Foundations, a former Ramones member, states it was actually Fairway who saw him in the dingy office and then introduced them to Class. Either way, both Fairway and Class teamed up to become their managers. Class took care of the business management, while Fairway went out promoting and trying to secure gigs for the group, I suppose, in order to feed themselves. Whenever on the top spot with Baby Now That I Found You, Fairway commented to Melody Maker that most management would pull them out of the bargain price dates that were booked for some time. He expressed gratitude to everyone for their support and said that they would fulfil every engagement for which they had signed.
Well, there we are. Let's just look at some of the information there. And as I say, we'll be hopefully talking to Clem Clements from the foundation.
Clem Clements?
Clem Curtis. Clem Curtis, yes. I always get it wrong. But we've got to say goodbye, really. We'll be back again next week with another...
Time has gone already.
I know, yes. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with the 4 grumpy old men, ourselves and Alan Mullion and Brian White. But this one doesn't really need any explanation at all, but you will know them as Brian and Michael. And catch a little number called The Matchstick Men and Matchstick Cats and Dogs. But from me, Mike Barry.
And me, Bob Luffield.
Have yourself a lovely, wonderful bank holiday weekend. We'll see you next week, but we'll see you tomorrow morning as well.
He painted Salford smoky tops on cardboard boxes from the shops and parts of Ancoats where I used to play. I'm sure he once walked down our street 'cause he painted kids who were out on the feet. The clothes they wore had all seen better days. Now they said his works of art were dull, no room or at the walls are full, but Lowry didn't care much anyway. They said he just paints cats and dogs and matched up men in boots and clogs, and Lowry said that's just the way they'll stay. And he painted matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. He painted kids on the corner of the street that were sparking clubs. Now he takes his brush and he waits outside them factory gates to paint his matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. Now canvas and brushes were wearing thin when London started calling him to come on down and wear the old flat cap. They said, tell us all about your ways and all about them Salford days. Is it true you're just an ordinary chap? And he painted matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. He painted kids on the corner of the street that were sparking clogs. Now he takes his brush and he waits outside them factory gates to paint his matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. Now Lowry's hung upon the wall beside the greatest of them all, and even the Mona Lisa takes a bow. This tired old man with hair like snow told northern folk it's time to go. The fever came and the good Lord mopped his brow. And he left us matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. He left us kids on the corner of the street that were sparking clogs. Now he takes his brush and he waits outside them pearly gates to paint his matched up men and matched up cats and dogs. And he left us matched up men and matched up cats and dogs.
MK Pulse proudly sponsors Seclo Sound.